Hey, I'm Marcus.
And I'm Nick.
We are working class nerds.
Cue the intro. That's right. We are Working Class Nerds, a podcast that gives you no information about your favorite information.
Today is Thursday, July 9th, 2020, and you can find this. I just went out to dinner with my wife for the first time since March podcast on Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/MarcusB814. Also, you can find the both of us on Twitter. I am at MarcusB814.
And I am at Nick Vern, that's NickVern. And this week's episode, we're talking after class in a lecture hall with the University of Coruscant's Dr. Sonny Ravencourt, a.k.a. James McDonald. And we'll be breaking down EA's statement of, we're doubling down on Star Wars games. So welcome to the show, James/Dr. Ravencourt, and tell us all about your podcast and what you've been up to the past couple weeks.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here, of course. I have been feverishly preparing for semester 3 or season 3 of the University of Coruscant, which is pretty much monopolizing all of my time. It's an enormous undertaking.
From the couple episodes I've listened to, I can only imagine how much research goes into that to be able to talk about it in like a real lecture format.
Well, I mean, the research and the writing is an enormous part, but on top of that, you have to sort of aggregate all of these different people and voice actors, and then get them to give you stuff willingly and for free, right, in like a somewhat timely manner, and then put it all together all at once. And so, I envy podcasts that come out on a weekly or bi-weekly basis like I used to do, because this thing is just such a monster that I do little blasts of it and then I wait and put together the next semester, and it takes me forever. And so there'll be like whole months where nothing happens simply because I'm trying to make something big happen.
Right. Usually that's how it happens with those type of shows. Can you explain to everybody the style of show that it is?
Sure.
Who doesn't? Because some of the people may not know.
Absolutely. The University of Coruscant is kind of my love letter to Star Wars. It is a fully immersive podcast. It is completely in universe. And so it is a series of lectures from a former holodrama star, a washed up holodrama star named Dr. Sonny Ravencourt, who has been brought to the University of Coruscant to teach galactic history. And the whole first semester was on weaponry, and then the second semester was on bounty hunters, and this upcoming semester is going to be on ancient Sith. And each show is about 15 minutes, but the whole first semester takes place in a lecture hall in Coruscant, and so you get all the sounds and fun of Star Wars in there. But the second semester, I didn't want to do like that, and so it became a much more ongoing storyline where I'm on the run from a bounty hunter. There's a bounty put on me by my Bothan associate because I didn't pay him for any of the weapons that he acquired for me for the first semester, and so everything just becomes much more fun, I think, to have this running storyline. The characters start to get fleshed out, but each episode you still get that lecture on whatever the subject is. And now he's just sending it back via holo to the university. So it's a fun thing, and I love the storylines and the characters a ton. Particularly my TA, the Mon Calamari TA named Todd, has been a huge hit for people. They love him more than me by a long shot.
My personal favorite is the probe droids. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody because I want them to listen to it. But the probe droids just did it for me. That made my day.
Well, there's so many fantastic sounds in Star Wars that are just so recognizable. Like when you say the word probe droid, just in your brain, it just starts to make those exactly. And you can't separate yourself from these things. And so that's been the fun of this podcast, is to be able to, bring all of this stuff in this sound space, and present it front to back, never breaking. And it's an honest to God audio play. And each season is something like, it's like a third of a novel when you break down the words. It's like 30,000 words. And it's crammed into 15-minute episodes. And then on top of that, you have all this sound and all these voice actors doing these parts. And so it's incredibly complicated. I think in the episode that you're referring to, I had something like 36 or 40 tracks running at once that were all providing sound. So
Did you hear that, Nick?
I don't want to think about it. Well, granted, I'd be using Audacity, which is probably way more complicated to use for that much audio than some other programs. But speaking of which, what are you using to edit?
I am using GarageBand on an Apple computer that is so old that it won't even accept updates anymore. It is absolutely ridiculous. But I have always used GarageBand ever since way back in the day. Like, I don't even know how many years ago I was doing Sonny's Diner, but it was a long, long time ago. And I just loved GarageBand so much that I learned it within an inch of its life, and I never really got away from it. And so one of these days, this computer is going to die. It's not the computer I'm even talking on right now. It's pretty much solely used for this podcast. And when it dies, I'm going to have a stroke because I'm going to have to learn a completely new system. I'm a little bit terrified of that. But no, I edit the whole thing on an archaic program. But man, can I squeeze all the life out of GarageBand.
But you could always get a new MacBook.
I could, but I don't want to. I mean, I've built this new computer, and it's amazing. And my wife has said, you are not going back. I'm not going to get a computer just to do the University of Coruscant. I could get a new MacBook, but I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to adapt. I'm going to learn. I'm going to grow a little bit. It's going to be hard. I'm going to lose years off my life, but I will do it.
It is going to be really hard when that happens, because I understand what it's like to have to switch something, like switch a program, and it's terrible. I don't care what anybody says. It's awful.
And the rendering the sound on this old thing, it takes time. Like it's old. You could just hear it complaining about the whole thing. But I'm just so used to it. I refuse to give it up until it finally dies.
Well, if it's an older MacBook, I bet you can still take it apart and upgrade the parts, just as an FYI.
It's a desktop iMac, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got it. I actually got it to run SWTOR on release. That was the purpose of getting that computer, was I wanted to get a new computer to run SWTOR when it released, and so that I could also record Sonny's Diner. And so that was the time that I got that thing. And ever since then, it's been doing podcasts for me.
Wow. All reliable.
Yeah.
So you did mention you built a new PC. Did you build it yourself? Did you order one from, newegg.com? How did you go about doing it?
No, I built it myself. And I realized that sounds like I'm proud and have achieved this great thing, but I relied on so much help from friends on the internet and whatnot. And really, it's not as hard as people would make it seem, but there is definitely moments in there when you're putting it all together and then you have to turn it on and you're just like, this is a coin flip. This is a coin flip whether or not any of this works whatsoever. And when it all fires up and things are humming and they're working, it is a glorious feeling. But no, I did assemble it all myself and bought all the pieces and got in there with the little goo for the thermal paste, and it's a bit of a heart attack, but it did work, and I was really excited about it.
The hardest part for me when putting together a computer is after you've hooked up all the PC fans, you have all those little individual pins that you have to plug into the motherboard, and they say, it could be It could be the LED light on the case. It could be the power button. You know what I mean? Just for that to engage everything or whatever it is. Those little pins drive me crazy because I have big hands, and getting those pins into the right locations, it never works first try.
It's pretty terrifying when you have to put all of the little pieces in the motherboard, because they don't really explain a ton of that. And this particular board, see, I did this previously like 7 years ago. And this time the board I got it required more power connections. And so I'm kind of looking at this thing as like, well, this looks important and it looks like I should put a power thing here, except I don't have the right connection for that. So is it okay if I just like cobble together some other ones and plug that in, or am I going to fry this whole thing and, make it worthless? Because I've actually built some guitar pedals and I had some success with that. And then one of them I completely destroyed in the process of building it, and it never turned on. And there is nothing more just heart stopping than getting to the end of it and having nothing work. Because I'm not an electrician. Like, I don't know where I screwed up. It just either works or it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, I had to send it to a guy in New York and ply him with like $30 to even figure out what was wrong with it. And then he just put the new parts in and fixed it and sent it back to me. And that was the last pedal I ever built.
Wow.
That's intense.
See, yeah, I love all this. So, as custom for me, what video card did you buy? Because this is something I really do care about.
I got the 2070.
Nice.
I was looking at the 2060 Super and the 2070, and people were talking about, it's minimal differences, but eventually somebody said, just get the 2070. You're going to pay like $30 more and it'll last you longer. And so I went with that, and I'm extremely happy with it.
And so, all right, so you have a brand new computer, right, Nick? Nick just bought a new laptop. His old laptop had the worst video card ever. He couldn't play a Minecraft on that. That's how bad that computer was.
Okay, I could play Minecraft. Just I'd have to turn down the graphics a little. They'd be too intense for it.
Exactly. So Nick got a new laptop, and Nick, have you used your PlayStation?
Not since I started seriously playing on my laptop. No, I think I turned on the PlayStation maybe twice. I'll give it 3 times. 2 times it was to watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine on the Hulu app on the PlayStation because it's connected to the TV in my room. And then the third time was to download the really big Call of Duty Modern Warfare update in case I ever wanted to play on the PS4. But I never actually played a game on it. And I just went back to playing on my PC.
Wasn't that update like some sort of monstrous thing that made the news?
Yes. All of their updates are humongous. And then one of them in particular was like 50 gigabytes or something preposterous.
Oh. Well, yeah, but it took, wasn't it like it downloaded 80 gigs, but the final download was only 50? Yeah. It was some ridiculous number.
I think you're right.
Nobody knows why. And nobody knows why.
Yeah, the whole game is like 120 gigs or something like that of hard drive space, which is like, for people, if you have like a 256 solid state in a laptop, like me. No, I think mine's 5 something. But
it's your whole box, man. Your computer is now a Call of Duty machine,
and that's it. Yeah,
but they do make a solid state external hard drive now, so
an external solid state drive.
Yeah. So you can put all your games on that, but that's just another USB thing that has to be plugged into your laptop.
Right, and I only have 3 USB things anyway, so I gotta get a hub for sure.
So James, what was the first game you played on your new laptop?
Oh, it's not a laptop. This is the full
I mean your desktop. I'm sorry, I was thinking about Nick.
And to be fair, like the tower that I got this tower 7 years ago for the previous computer, and everyone's like, make sure you get enough tower space. And so I bought the biggest tower I could, like just an absolute monster. And it's the complete opposite of what my friend would be looking for in a computer, something nice and compact and everything. I'm like, no, I just need it to hold everything, period. It's an absolute monster. The first game that I played, I can't remember if it was Elder Scrolls Online, which is not terribly graphically intensive, but I know I played The Witcher really
Ooh.
quickly because I wanted to turn that all the way up and see what that looked like. And the other one that I really wanted to test it on was No Man's Sky, because that one had been bothering me. Like just actively bothering me because I had to turn it down a few times to make it run effectively. And so I fired up No Man's Sky on 11 across the board, and I was super, super excited about it.
Oh,
That's awesome.
awesome.
That's a great
That
feeling.
is- Yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant. I mean, it's a feeling that can only be really explained to a person who's been there before, to have, because you don't just like suffer with a computer with bad graphics for a while. You suffer for like years, right? Before you
Right.
actually make that change. And then when you do make the change, it's just you don't know what to do with yourself. It's just like all the opportunities are in front of you.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like staring at you getting a plate of different food and not knowing which to start with or something like that.
It's like turning on color TV.
Well, and on top of that, you have Steam, and so you have all of these games. You're just like, what do I download? And you have to make decisions. And so you sort of just like download almost everything all at once, and you're just a kid in a candy store. It's been so much fun.
Oh my God, I forgot about my Steam library. That's a dangerous game because I've got games that I've put like 500 hours into on there. If I revisit those, it's going to be like my life's over.
I have.
For me,
Go
that would be
ahead.
like Fallout New Vegas. If I go back to New Vegas or something and start a new campaign, forget about it. Or Skyrim. I haven't played Skyrim in like more than 5 years.
You played 200 plus hours on that game, I think.
No. For Skyrim, I played about 250 to 300 on the Xbox 360, and then another 300 or so on the PC.
Whoa.
And Fallout New Vegas is like the same thing, basically.
And I'm the complete opposite on Steam. My Steam library, I have like 150 games, and I've only played Call of Duty.
I'm that way with Civ. The Civ series has sucked up, years of my life, and there's just astronomical numbers for hours played on that. That one's always dangerous. I'm like actively a little bit scared to start campaigns on Civ.
Sure.
I've never got into Civ, but I've had a lot of my college friends were super into it, so I can sort of appreciate from a distance. But I'm almost afraid to jump in because it seems really fun. Also,
it's just so deep now, I mean, it's got like years and years and years of development and systems and mechanics and things like that, and so it's always a little bit scary. It's one of those games where you feel like, God, I wish I would have caught this at the beginning. Well, I don't ever feel that way because I always get the new one whenever it comes out because I'm a huge fan. But like for other people and for other types of games, like Stellaris, I think was one of them, or like the Crusader Kings games. Like sometimes I'll want to play one of those games, but there's, they're like 9 expansions in and they've added all this stuff, and you can't wrap your brain around the basic mechanics because it's just mechanics upon mechanics. I think that Civ would be that way for a new person.
yeah, I can see that. I feel sort of similarly about Rainbow Six Siege. Like if you jumped into it originally, there weren't that many operators, or in maps, but now there's so many more operators. There's so many things to like be listening for and looking out for as options that people can do. That would be a little overwhelming to start now and like be really aware of what's happening all because of that layers and layers of mechanics,
Right.
So, Nick, what have you been up to this week other than flipping me off on the highway on your way home from work today?
I thought that was epic. So we talked about that before the show, but we should definitely talk about that on the air. So I don't know where Marcus was coming from dinner. And I was coming back from work, and it was obviously on the same highway in the same direction. So I'm driving home from work. I'm like, shit, I gotta hurry up. I get out of work at like 7:30, and we're supposed to start recording at 8:30, and that obviously didn't end up happening. But I'm rushing regardless, and I'm like, oh hey, this guy has a Star Wars sticker on the back of his truck. Oh wait a minute, there's 2 Star Wars stickers. Wait a minute, that's Marcus's truck. There's no way that's not Marcus. So I pulled up next to him. Sure enough, it was. I'm like, all right, how do I say hi? Oh, I'm going to make him think that like I'm an angry driver. So I laid on my horn and then flipped him off. And his head whipped around so fast, he was ready to like rage and like have his giant lifted truck eat my little tiny Subaru. And then he saw it was me and, cracked a giant smile and flipped me off back. And then I passed him and got off the exit.
Yeah, you were out. That Subaru was moving.
Well, dude, I had to get home and shower and eat and get on the show. I know you just had
true.
to sit down and plug the mic in, but
Yep.
I had to
Anyways,
get my crap together.
What did you do this past week?
So this past weekend was 4th of July. I worked basically the whole weekend. I worked a 12-hour shift on Friday, an 8-hour shift on Saturday, and then a 4-hour shift on Sunday and 12 hours on Monday. So Saturday was when it was interesting. I was originally going to work all 12 hours, and then one of my friends from work offered to swap 4 hours for 4 hours with me. So she would work the last 4 of my shift on Saturday for 4 hours of her shift on Sunday, which wasn't too bad. So I thought, I wanted to throw a little party for the people that had to work all day Saturday, because most of the time we work 12-hour shifts at the hospital. So all the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. people, you'd be missing, barbecues or going out on a boat or whatever you may do on 4th of July. So I figured I'd have like a fire and some beverages and set up some food and music and just have people over to hang out. Well, I didn't realize that I told a bunch of people, I was like, yeah, invite whoever. It's all good. Come on over. And I made like about a gallon of margaritas and a whole bunch of White Claws and things. Well, needless to say, a few of my friends from the 7A to 7P shift came over, but then also a few people that I know from the 11 p.m. shift came over after they got out, so they weren't getting there till like midnight, and everyone for all the 7 p.m. shifters were already drunk and like encouraging them to shotgun White Claws and drink more margaritas. And long story short, everyone didn't leave. The last people didn't leave until 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, and you had to work the next day?
Yeah, granted, I only had to work 4 hours, and I didn't have to go in until 11 a.m., but still, I was so cripplingly hungover. It was brutal. Yeah, I will say, thank God I was wearing a mask because all I could smell under my mask was myself, all the alcohol and bug spray. I was making myself nauseous.
That's a fantastic combination.
Yeah, it was like a little with just a sprinkle of campfire. I smelled like a chemical factory or something. But
go ahead.
So in video game stuff, I've just been playing a good chunk of Call of Duty, mostly multiplayer stuff. I hopped online with Marcus and Ven and Katarina and Al, friend of the podcast, all friends of the podcast last night, which was pretty sweet.
Last night was really fun.
We tried some new maps and things and got frustrated with people who are way better than us as per Call of Duty tradition. And then
and can we just talk about how if you're using a controller, the aim assist is God.
Yeah.
Like I thought I was like I remember playing on the Xbox and I thought I was pretty good. But come to find out, it's all aim assist.
Yeah.
Aim assist helps you kill people.
Definitely.
So believe it or not, people say that keyboard and mouse have an advantage over the controller. I agree with a sniper rifle if you're far away because you can hold the mouse where you want it, but in a closer quarters combat, the controller is way better.
Yeah, definitely.
Because of the aim assist. Because when you start shooting, it helps you get to that point to shoot them, and then you're just holding the trigger and they're dead.
Right. Yeah. You definitely acquire your target and stay on it more reliably with the aim assist on the controllers that they have built into it. Although I wonder if the aim assist is turned off when you're in a lobby with a controller and it's only people with controllers with you. I'd be curious to see how that works because obviously when they were playing against us, we were all on PC and they were on controllers. We could see it, but I wonder how that works normally.
You can turn off controller play.
No, I know. I mean, if you're like me playing on my PS4, if I'm in a lobby of only people playing with controllers, do we all have aim assist still, or do they just turn it off? Oh, okay.
No. Controllers always use aim assist.
Okay, that makes sense. But so yeah, a bunch of Call of Duty for video game stuff. I think I'm probably gonna have more gaming upcoming because I've got a whole week off next week, so I don't have to work at all. So I can just jam all day when no one else is home.
I'm just going to say this, Nick, and I really like. I wish I could get you to do it, and I know you're not a big MMO guy.
Yeah.
But you should really play Elder Scrolls Online.
Okay.
It's
I mean,
Skyrim,
but an
and
MMO.
it's never, but an MMO.
Yeah.
Like I could give you my. Actually, I could. I know what I should do is I should just give you my login, and then you could just play and create a new character. Because it's buy to play, so you don't have to sub if you don't want to.
Right.
You can play the story just by buying the game. You would love it. You knowing how much you played Skyrim and all the other Elder Scrolls games, you'll love this game. It plays just like it.
I'm sure. That's a good idea. Maybe I will play Elder Scrolls Online over the next week.
You
But
should.
I definitely
It's worth
should.
trying. It's a different. I think it's a different type of game. You definitely can get away with a lot of that Skyrim sort of feel with it, and it does have not your standard tab targeting for an MMO. It's definitely worth playing, I would say. So I agree. You should give it a run. I don't think that it's a direct translation from Skyrim, and so you might not like it. But it's definitely worth trying.
Okay. I think
A
I got
lot of people. Yeah.
I was just gonna say,
Oh.
I think I gotta at least give it a fair shake.
Well, knowing how much you love Bethesda, I think you're gonna love it.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't know why. I just think like if there's an MMO for you, I think it's that.
Well, if you're into story, I mean, it's fully voice acted. The story is tremendous. I mean, every little quest has when you add, a voice actor or actress telling you what they want you to do and, having their own little story, it just makes the whole thing that much better. So if you enjoyed Skyrim because you got to go on a bunch of little adventures for people, well, then you're going to love this. It's really cool when you have a game like that.
And it's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
For like, Nick, how like SOTOR or some of the other MMOs just look dated.
Yeah.
This game is beautiful. It reminds me of Skyrim.
You know what's funny? I actually signed up for the beta for ESO, but I didn't have a computer to play it on, so I got a beta code and then this is 2 laptops ago, so this laptop was probably like $300 or something, and maybe even less, and had like no graphics card at all. Then I tried to play this on it, so obviously I couldn't. It was like 8 frames per second or something on the lowest settings. So I just gave up and stopped. But I forgot all about that whole escapade. I was tried for an hour to get it to work right, and obviously it didn't.
Elder Scrolls Online Steam right now is $19.99.
All right, I'll buy it after the show. I'll pony up the $20.
Yeah, Nick, I promise. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Just because it plays to me, it plays like Skyrim.
Yeah, I need to. Like we keep saying this. I just got to go do it, and I've got a whole week off. There's no excuse. I got to try it.
It's got one of the weirdest mechanics
wait.
of any game I've ever played, though, and that is the way that they do the auction house.
Okay.
Each guild has their own ability to get a vendor be a little mini auction house. And so you sell things within all the different guilds. There's no central auction house. It is bizarre, and I can't really explain it well, but it is definitely something to keep your eyes out on. The upside is that it incentivizes all these guilds to, put seller to bid, basically, to put a seller in a very popular place. But the downside is you have to be usually a member of that guild to sell anything from that particular vendor, but you can be a member of 5 different guilds. So there's some weird things going on in there. It's definitely worth $20 though.
I'll definitely check it out. That sounds interesting.
And Nick, I have a low B character, so if you play, I can totally play with you. I just after playing it after playing it in that Where to Start event again, it a lot more made sense because I had somebody walking me through it, where the stuff that confused me is only because the only MMO I've really only invested my time in is SWTOR, but I had somebody who's a pro, and you're already a pro because you play Skyrim, or you've played so many hours of Skyrim.
Right. So, I got to play that. But can I talk about another sort of game that I started playing a couple weeks ago.
Sorry for my sidebar.
Oh, no way. That was a perfect sidebar. And I know James here can talk a whole heck of a lot about it. It's not a video game. It's what would you call it? A board game technically, but it's like a minis game.
Yeah, it's like a wargaming miniatures game.
Yeah. It is called Star Wars Legion. It's not new, but it's new to me. And my good friend Joey Feta, who we've tried to get on the show 17 times. I know him through Yukon Paintball originally, but he has a whole setup at his house. He painted all the miniatures. He made 2 different environments in Tatooine and on Endor, and we started playing a few times now over the past couple of weeks, and it's really awesome. It's like, how would you like the quick summary I'd give is like, if it's kind of like chess, if every time you tried to take a piece, you had to roll dice against each other. And then also, instead of chess pieces, they're Star Wars characters. So you've got like squads of stormtroopers versus squads of rebels as your pawns, and then you've got like Darth Vader or Luke as your like queens or something.
You know the way that I explain it to people is, if you've ever seen like a World War II movie where they've got a giant board and it's like a map and they've got their little troops and stuff, and they have sort of shuffleboard cues that they're moving their guys around to, explain where they're going to attack and things like that. It's like that, only on like a 3x3 foot board or a 3x6 foot board.
That's a perfect analogy. That's exactly the visual you should picture in your heads, podcast world. But it's really fun. Now Joey and I are talking about getting different expansions, which give you different characters, and there's a way to balance each army so that you can not just, one person can't just buy like Palpatine and Boba Fett and have Darth Vader, you know what I mean, and have all these cool characters that are demolishing everybody. Each character or sort of squad or figure, I guess, is set a point value based on how powerful they are in the game, and then you have a cap on how many points you can use. I think it's like 800 typically in competition per team. So it's interesting. Joey's been staying on the Rebel side of things. I like the Imperial side, which is probably a surprise to no one that listens to this. And yeah, I'll be definitely talking more about Legion as we continue to play, because I know he just got Boba Fett, and I can't wait to use him.
I really want to play this game. I would love to play this game.
Yeah, Marcus, next time we play, we'll work you into the schedule so you can come too.
Yeah, it's definitely something I want to check out.
Well, you're going to open yourself up to like this entirely different universe of gaming, because there's a variety of games like this for almost any style, particularly with Star Wars, and they're highly, highly competitive. They have, locals and regionals and nationals and then world championships and all of this stuff. This is like the sort of the ground-based tactical one, but then there is X-Wing miniatures, which sort of started it all, which is like a dog fighting type of thing with ships. And then you have Armada, which is a capital ship sort of fight, and then you have like squadrons that come out and everything like that. And it's a whole world of this kind of stuff, and there are people that just dedicate themselves to exactly this.
So yeah, James, before the show started, you were saying you competed with Legion and did pretty well. How far did you make it?
I didn't compete with Legion.
Oh, sorry.
I've maybe played a tournament or two in Legion, but I never really was serious about Legion. What I was serious was way back in the day, like in 2014 or something like that, with X-Wing miniatures, and so I competed locally, and then I actually ran a tournament where I invited like people from all over the Midwest to come to Iowa City and play as a charity event, and that was great. And then I went up and I competed in the World Championships in Roseville, Minnesota, and I got in the top 8 out of like 300 some people. I played the Saudi Arabian national champion and the German national champion. I think I beat the German national champion. Either way, it was tremendous. It was like 4 days long or something like that. You had different waves of the first day, and then you went into like an elimination bracket for the people that made it to that. It was crazy. It was this huge, intense thing, and I had a blast. I flew an interceptor, a Lambda shuttle, and a TIE fighter. With specific pilots, you can get all these little upgrades. So my interceptor pilot was Sunterfell, and I had the Emperor on the shuttle and everything like that. And it was a blast. It's a hugely geeky thing, enormously nerd, but it was so much fun. But it took so much practice to like get really good at it. At the same time, some of these people play these games just so that they can paint the little figures, and they love it. And usually there's like awards for these kind of things on painting, on top of like competing. Some of the people just want to make their figures look really cool, and those people are superior talent painters out there. It's really cool.
I think that's one of the big draws for Joey in making his figures, because it's like therapeutic for him to just sit quietly after work or during the day, whatever, and put on like a podcast or something and just paint for a few hours and make everything like meticulously perfect. He'll even put, I don't know if this is standard practice or not for folks. I'm sure it is, but he'll even put like grass and like little miniature sticks and things on the pedestals for each figure to make them, for example, for the grass would obviously be for Endor, or he'll make it look like sort of fern leaves on the ground. In that case, or sand on the pedestals for people that are supposed to be on Tatooine. I thought those little details are pretty cool too.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a whole niche culture of these kind of things. It's very hobby based, and there's a whole cottage industry for miniatures, miniature painting, and miniature creations. And some of the stuff that people can do is just amazing. It is one of the reasons why I got into X-Wing miniatures is because I didn't have to paint the ships because the ships came pre-painted.
Right.
And there's nothing more irritating than playing with a bunch of, plasticky looking things that are just a stock gray. But in X-Wing, the ships all, came pre-painted. And so, maybe I put like a stripe on it or something like that to make it look cool. But other than that, but Legion is entirely unpainted. And so when I've seen a picture of what you were playing with, like somebody has put in a lot of effort to make those things look cool. And when you're moving them around and stuff, it is a cool feeling to have them look awesome in this little battlefield.
Definitely. The ATST that Joey did is, well, it's like roughly to scale. So compared to the figures, so it's just this enormous figurine compared to the little stormtroopers and things. So it's pretty cool to have that big dominating force on the field. It's a dominating force like power wise, but also just it's this big imposing figure on the board. It's cool to see everything and how it works. But I guess that's sort of it for me. Marcus, what have you been up to this week?
Nothing.
Not a thing.
Not one thing.
So I mentioned it in the roll of the show that tonight was the first night since March or February that my wife and I went out to dinner, just us two, no kids, and somebody served us food. And let me tell you how fantastic it was. Appetizers, drinks, dinner, even dessert. Listen, I felt like a king today, or I still feel like a king, I should say. I don't care what anybody says. I understand COVID is happening right now, but there is nothing on this planet like you going to a restaurant, you sitting down and somebody serving you food. It's a wonderful feeling. And then when the food's fantastic, it's even better. Done there. Enough said.
Yeah.
So Death Star Troopers is getting really close. I know I said this last episode to beating Revan on hard mode. That fight sucks. We're almost there. So the last episode I was saying we were consistently getting to the third floor. Now we're getting to the final phase of the fight. It's just a matter of it's going to work one of these times, and we're just going to win. I was joking with the team and saying I was going to smash my monitor when we win because we've been working so hard to beat it. And then Ven was like talking about like some 1G star or something. I guess he did that. I have no idea. But I'm going to lose my shit when we finally beat it because it'll be like that'll be a huge milestone, and then we can just move on. Anyways, Call of Duty, man, I can't thank you enough, Nick, because coming back to that after all these years of not playing it because back in like when Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, those were really my games. Like the Modern Warfare for whatever it was, Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, the original Modern Warfare.
Mm-hmm.
That one I loved because it was the first one. And like Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3, but like the Black Ops versions really were my jam.
Yeah.
I found like the art style of that and the way how fast paced it was, it really bled to my way of the pray and spray model.
Yeah.
And I really, it was funny in like Black Ops, I could go 20-3, no problem. But in Modern Warfare, I would go 4-20. So it was, I always felt like Modern Warfare was a little slower and a little more tactical, even though it was still fast paced because it was Call of Duty.
Yeah.
But this Modern Warfare I feel like it has almost embraced all of the Call of Duties up till today and put a little bit of everything into it. I started using the M13 gun and I'm really enjoying it. Ven says once you max it out, he'll, and you get all the attachments, he has like the build for it that like makes it perfect. I'll do that at some point. I've also been playing the Division 2. So I always wanted to play the first one, but because I always felt as if SOTOR, I couldn't play another game because I was cheating on SOTOR. I finally just said, F this. And this is back when I started streaming, that I am going to start playing the games that I want to play. And I'm going to stream them and it'll almost put me at like accountable to play these games.
Yeah.
So I started playing it. I will say it's a little freaky for me because they have like voice echoes. In Fallen Order, Nick, when you find wait, James, did you play Fallen Order?
I am playing Fallen Order.
So I am too. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll keep it spoiler-free for the record.
Right. So, those force echoes you find in like somebody's talking?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You find that in the Division 2 as well. And it like shows like two people walking out of a restaurant and like two gang members off to the side. And they came out and they're like, they said it was just going to be, it's just another type of flu. It's not going to be that bad. It's going to be over soon. And then like you're in a war zone of a city that like it's completely been decimated by this virus and the virus has already wiped people out. And there's no zombies or anything. It's just killed everybody. And the people who have survived have, there's the good guys and the bad guys and then the innocents, of course.
Right.
But it's a really intense game. Like when you're playing a duck and cover third person shooter, I find that is more intense than a Call of Duty game where you're running and gunning.
Yeah, because I feel like it gives you like accountability for getting shot, kind of.
Yeah, and it's super tactical, and these AI are really smart. Now, I'm not far into the game where I'm going to get smoked, and I'll probably have to quit because I suck at this game, but I'm at the point now where it's still fun, but they like, all of a sudden, I have the whole room under control. All of a sudden, 3 dudes are like behind me, punching me in the face, and I'm like, I don't even know where the melee button is. I don't know how to kill these guys. So, but the reality of the real times of COVID-19 in the Division 2, it actually hits kind of home.
And it makes the game more immersive, I'd imagine, right?
But it also makes it feel a little more creepy.
Yeah.
My saving grace is it's not set in Boston or New York City. The first game was in New York City. Their big new expansion brought you back to New York City. Mm-hmm. But this one takes place in Washington, D.C., which I have no ties to D.C. So I'm just like, they're talking about like, oh, do you remember going to this restaurant? And I'm like, thank God I don't know that. But if it was in Boston and they were like, oh, do you remember Brico? I'm going to be like, oh, fuck, I can't play this game.
Yeah, that would creep me out big time.
So also streaming has been so much fun. Thank you so much to everybody who has followed me, subbed to me, just been there for me, because I haven't been streaming that long, and I feel like I'm having so much fun doing it. It's bringing out another side of me as a gamer and as a personable person, because I do love to talk. So it's just another avenue for me to get to do that. And this week I've actually been off. Like I haven't streamed since Sunday because Nick and I were guests on the Star Wars Battlefront podcast. Shout
Yep.
out to those guys. On Tuesday, which we're recording on Thursday of this week. And it was a really fun show. And I'm really excited for it to get uploaded so I can share it with all you guys to listen to it. Also, too, I ordered a new mic probably like 2 months ago. As soon as the Elgato Wave 3 mic was announced, I got right onto their website and ordered it. And it didn't say it was out of stock. It did not say it was back ordered. And I ordered a 4K capture card at the same time. The capture card came in within 2 days. And this Wave 3 mic, I paid for it, but it has been nowhere to be found this whole time. And all of a sudden, I got the email today that it's on its way. So I'm really looking forward to a new mic for streaming. It's not our podcast mic. I guess the technology with it is really good. So I'm excited for it. Lastly, I need your help. So I have the Elgato Stream Deck, and I cannot get my clip button to work. So the clip button is you push it and it rewinds 30 seconds and clips that part from where you push the button. So almost to give you like, oh my God, that was so awesome. Push the button and it'll save that last 30 seconds of magic, whatever you're talking.
Yeah.
So it's on the thing, but it doesn't work. So I don't quite know what to do. So if anybody's listening to the show, please help, because I'm lost in it.
Help you, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're our only hope.
Yes.
So, it looks like we've got some SOTOR news.
Mm-hmm.
It reads that you should jump into your favorite in-game events all through July. So we've got a whole bunch. SOTOR is running a whole bunch of events all through July. They've got the All Worlds Ultimate Swoop Rally, which is June 30th through July 7th.
And that just ended.
I'm now realizing that just ended. You've got a whole bunch of Nar Shaddaa Nightlife, which runs from July 14th through August 11th. You've also got the Rakghoul Resurgence on Alderaan, which is running from July 14th through July 21st. And also another All Worlds Ultimate Swoop Rally, which is July 28th through August 4th.
So game update 6.1.2 came out, which was the Swoop Rally, which we talked about last week. And I said, oh, no, we did talk about it with Doc, but our sound got corrupted. Yeah, so you guys didn't know that I talked about this. So at that point, I did not try the Swoop Rally. Since then, I have done the Swoop Rally. It was fun. I mean, it was fun. I did each race on each planet once, and that was it. I didn't know that you had to click a separate terminal for the weekly, which I thought was kind of dumb, but they got me, so I actually have to do that before the servers reset on Tuesday so I can get the weekly rewards. But to me now, it just seems like it's fluff content.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying it's great, but for the last like 4 months or 5 months, this is what we've been looking forward to. And this is what the entire team has been working on. I'm not so overjoyed by it. I'm not saying it's not fun, and I'm sure we can have an awesome mega with it or something like that, but it is what it is. Anyways, in AIE news, Summer of Love, Remembrance Day is coming on August 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
As all you guys know, Remembrance Day is the one day in the guild where we stop and we go to the most peaceful planets in all of the MMOs that we play.
Mm-hmm.
And we remember all of our friends, family, and guildmates who have passed and became one with the Force. It's a really special event for the guild. Events will be happening every night, August 1st through August 9th. So check the AIE's Discord and get the guild calendar from the website, and it'll show what events are happening, what day and what time, because there will be something every night of the week throughout all of the games. Every other week in Star Wars The Old Republic, every other Friday, Mei Lung is hosting Master Mode Flashpoints. For what, you ask? He's doing the Aerotech Ice Mount quests. So I think you need to beat 3 master mode flashpoints. I don't know how many, but then you earn this mount. But the master mode flashpoints are they're actually tough. You have to do the mechanics. You need a tank, you need a healer, and you need 2 DPS to clear some of them. Obviously, there's some that you don't need. But if you're interested in that, check out the SOTOR Discord, and you can find out what Friday coming up they are doing that. Nick, we actually have some Lord of the Rings Online news.
I know.
Thanks, Mal, for sending this.
So a big thank you to Marcus and Fezgig for putting together the Where to Start event. We have been busy in-game and in Discord between that and the AIE podcast. We have a lot planned and some giveaways planned for upcoming SNL and our
Saturday Night Lotro.
For our upcoming Saturday Night Lotro and our portion of Summer of Love, which is pretty exciting. So basically, Mal from AIE, who runs the all the Lotro stuff, am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Is just saying they've got a whole lot of things planned for Saturday Night Lotro and a whole bunch of Summer of Love things for AIE. So if you're into Lord of the Rings Online or want to check it out, here's how you can. If all this sounds fun to you, go to aie-guild.org, jump in the Discord, and ask for a guild invite. Whether or not you play Star Wars The Old Republic or Lord of the Rings Online or any of the other games we play, we would love to have you. Yes, you. We're talking about you, that guy in the red Suburban driving down the highway. Listen to this, that word. Yes, you.
And listen, and now even Call of Duty, like it's not an MMO, but we do have an active Call of Duty group. So if you get into the Discord, go into the Nomads channel at me. I will get you in the guild, clan, regiment, whatever it's called, and come play Call of Duty with us too. Somebody is playing Call of Duty almost every night, and it is a lot of fun. Just be warned that Call of Duty sometimes brings out not family-friendly language.
That is true. Not particularly. We're never aimed at each other. Always aimed at the people that are better than us that shoot us.
Yeah, there could be some F-bombs. So, anyways, Nick, do you have to use the bathroom?
As always, I do. So we'll be right back.
Jeez, Nick, hurry up. We're trying to finish this podcast.
And we're back. So today we're discussing our thoughts on EA's statement that they are, quote, doubling down on Star Wars games going forward. So I guess we're all going to sort of go around the table, the philosophical table, I guess, and answer the question, how do we think that EA's done over the past 8 years of their contract to make Star Wars video games with the following games? Star Wars The Old Republic, Lego Star Wars, Battlefront 2015, Battlefront 2019, or Battlefront 2, I should say, 2019, Jedi Fallen Order, and also the upcoming game Squadrons. Who would like to go first?
James, how do you think they've done
generally
with their license? Yeah, just a general question, not even getting into the games, but how do you think they've done over the course of the last 8 years with their license?
I think they've done, I'll give them a B. And I think that I'm perpetually an optimist with a lot of these things. It's that way with the movies too for me. Everyone wants to pick their camp with regards to The Last Jedi and then Return of Skywalker. And they kind of get entrenched and they're like, I hate this and I love this. Or some people are just toxic and hate everything. I'm much more the optimist on all this stuff. And I think they've done a pretty serviceable job with an IP that is so enormous, right? Because it's really going to hit home for a ridiculous number of people. And they're going to be more invested than they should be in some of these games. When SWTOR came out, they really promised a lot and they delivered on some of it. And then it went free to play. And man, I was there for that. Sonny's Diner, my original podcast way back in the day, was a pre-launch podcast. And it followed that whole thing and it saw the rise and the fall of it. I saw the devs come in and then the devs leave. And I saw, one of the doctors leave, which was a big deal. And that, really, that was tough to watch. A lot of people were unhappy with that, and you built a lot up on that game as far as what it was going to be for you. And then it didn't really hit home for everybody, and frankly for most people. And so that was a frustrating thing. The Battlefront games, I think, had a weird run. Obviously, with the most recent one being released and then just dead quiet for, I don't know what, like a year or something like that. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, they're like, oh, yeah, this still exists. Let's put a bunch of effort into it and make it the game that, we could have been doing a year ago. And so that was very strange, but it's a good game now. It's a very playable, fun game. I think the Lego one, even though it's not really my jam, probably knocked it out of the park the cleanest right off the bat. They came out with it. It was good. It was great. I mean, all those Lego games are great. It was funny. It was witty. And that's what it is. And so that was a pretty good one. So I don't know. Like, I'll give them a B. I won't give them an A, but I also won't give them like a D or something like that, because I think that anytime you're having to deal with launches of this size for this many people, there's only a few companies in the world that can do it. And so I've been fairly happy with it. SWTOR has become what it is, and a lot of people still love it. And the Battlefront games are what they are now, and people are complaining that they're shutting them down. So that's a pretty good sign. Squadrons, I've got a lot pinned on Squadrons. I am one of those players that loved TIE Fighter. I loved, TIE Fighter versus X-Wing, all that stuff from back in the day. That was really, those were formative games for me. And so I have a ton pinned on this one. I'm a big flight simulator guy. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm a little scared at the $40 price point. I think that it could be a little bit of like Counter-Strike for the modern era, like a game that is just a multiplayer thing with a little bit of a tack on of this campaign just to get you into the different ships. But at the same time, if they make that multiplayer a lot of fun to play, I'm going to be big into it, and I'm going to love it, because they really look like they've given that feel of Star Wars back. Like the fonts on the dials and
Yes.
everything like that really feels Star Warsy. And what they've been saying is, we played TIE Fighter. We think that this is the game that we would have wanted back in the day if we had supercomputers. And
Sure.
that I like that. So B, that's what I'm giving them.
Okay. So I want Nick, you to go next, but I just want to answer your thing on Squadrons.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't lose it, is my opinion on what Squadrons is. It's what Battlefront 2015 was, except they heard. So when Battlefront 2015 came out, I remember I was so excited for it. People are like, it's only multiplayer. There's no story. I was like, who gives a shit? I'm going to be Stormtrooper straight up shooting people with an E11. Like, I'm in. And they had it at a $60 price point. People raged over that. I still bought it because it's Star Wars and I wanted to play it. So my thought on Squadrons is they're going to give us, a 3 to 5 hour long campaign. I don't think it's going to be long. And they're going to give us a few maps. And I think this is the beginning of it. I think it's going to be Battlefront 2015. They're going to let it play for a couple of years, and they're going to immediately make Squadrons 2. And they're going to invest a ton into that. And they're going to get all the data of what worked in the campaign that they gave us, what worked in the multiplayer, what maps, did they play Domination or Capture the Flag or whatever it would be? Did more people play Galactic War? You know what I mean? And did people try fly the Mon Calamari ships over the Star Destroyers or the Clone Wars Star Destroyers, whatever it might be, right? And I think Squadrons, $40 price point, I don't think you should be afraid of it. I think that is EA saying, look we don't want people to be pissed again. So we're telling you it's $40 because we want people to buy this game, and it's essentially you're buying their AAA beta test for
Right.
Squadrons 2 later.
That makes
And
a lot
if
of
it's
sense.
if it's super successful, they're gonna run with it. because they know that they've given us the three components of Star Wars that everybody wants. Battlefront is the first-person shooter. That is the war, like, multiplayer game. You get Fallen Order, which is the straight-up linear-ish story game where you get the story and it's fun. And now you're getting the flight sim of the TIE fighter and all the ships in squadrons. Or you can play SOTOR, which has all three of those in one game.
I think that you're right, but for different reasons. I think you have to look at like the evolution of the flight sim. I mean, it's a dead genre, and it has been for about 10 to 15 years. Like all of these games that came out with real flight sims and space flight sims and everything like that, with the exception of, maybe Elite Dangerous, and then Star Citizen, which is still, not made. There hasn't been another one. And so this to me says there's a couple guys in, inside EA or inside their dev studio that really wanted to bring this back and managed to sell them on giving them a shot on this. And so you're right that I think that this is a bit of a test balloon on it, but for different reasons. I think that like convincing EA to release a flight sim, which has been a not profitable thing for the last 15 years, is a big jump. And so for them to put all their eggs in that basket would be probably too much. But for them to give it a shot, I think is amazing, because I think that they're underestimating how many people really have nostalgia for those 90s flight sims.
Sure.
I think that's fair to say.
So, Nick, how do you think EA has done over the last 8 years?
If I should give an overall letter grade, I think I would go with like a B minus, like an 82%. Like or maybe C plus, B minus, somewhere in there. Like, you kind of studied for the test, but you really could have studied a lot more. You know what I mean? But you still knew enough. You know what I mean? And it's like satisfactory. I think sort of I will say they've definitely finished stronger in recent years than they started, if that makes sense. So Star Wars: The Old Republic started before this big contract and has continued through it. And I think obviously now we're a little frustrated with the lack of sort of content coming out for that title. But there's so much on the front end that, like, looking at it over an 8-year period, I have to, like, sort of applaud them, not just be tainted by the recency bias of what's happening with SOTOR, but because of how much content and how much cool content there is there from years prior. So Lego Star Wars is just consistently like solid. So it's not super hilarious, but it's definitely like I chuckle at all the jokes in it, and it's always all the levels are always like solidly fun. It knows what it is, it sticks to that, and it does a very solid job. You know what I mean? They've been consistently just staying in their lane, and I like every single Lego Star Wars game that I've ever played. And I think that's a pretty popular opinion for most people.
Sure.
I think with Battlefront 2015, I think that game, it was clearly like they were testing the waters on how to redo the Battlefront franchise. And I think they came a little short in how limited that game was, like with no campaign and basically just multiplayer, and sort of a limited multiplayer where you're only, the original trilogy factions and things like that. But then they sort of corrected that in Battlefront 2019 eventually, where, obviously they had some miscues at launch or before launch or whatever, but they fixed that, and now that game has all different things that you can play, all different eras, like way more customizations. It's just like an all-around, really well fleshed out game now. And I think that's evident by like the 14 million player base or whatever they've had recently. Something preposterous for a game that I thought was dead like a year ago.
It is that they stopped updating the game. There's no more updates for that game. And then after they announced that, they released that it was free. You can get it for free on PlayStation Plus, and now you can get it on Steam. And since then, I don't know what they said on the Star Wars Battlefront podcast, but did they say like 20 million? Yeah, 20 million concurrent players
something
are playing the game.
Loaded.
Something preposterous.
But yet they stopped. But they stopped production. But I'll wait to say my opinion on EA.
Yeah. So I think you can argue stopping production on it or not, or ceasing support for it is a good move or not. I think that's probably a bit of a miscue considering how many players came back to that game, or came to it initially, like you and I did, Marcus. In the past few months.
Yes,
but I think like it would almost be worth it to go back and put some more devs on that case, so to speak. Like to start to make a little bit more content for it to stretch that game out, because you might convince someone like you or I to go buy some skins or go buy, I don't know, some extra stuff and get some more life out of the game and jazz it up a little, make it more profitable for you guys, but also get, these new players or returning players more involved in the community or involved in, I mean, heck, you and I just got on the Star Wars Battlefront podcast and we would have absolutely never done that a year ago,
Right.
So I think what they've done, what the game is really good. But I think not continuing to support it after seeing that big surge might be a miscue. So sort of in line with that sort of B- grade I gave. Fallen Order, I think, is like an A+. That they crushed it with that game. I loved Fallen Order.
Oh man, I didn't even talk about Fallen Order.
We can circle back.
Yeah,
but
good.
So I will no spoilers but I finished that game. The ending's fantastic. I love the whole story arc of that game. There are lots of sort of twists and turns as things unwrap.
Yep. I can't wait.
And I think just the way that like the character. So I thought Cal was a little annoying at first, but then as you like get to know the character, he's not, I understand where he's coming from a lot more, and it's really cool to explore an era that you don't see in most other media. So if you don't know, Fallen Order is oh, my display just shut off. Are you guys still with me? Yep. Okay.
Yep.
We're fine. So I don't think I jiggled the mouse in a while. Anyways, if you don't know, Fallen Order has set after Order 66, but before A New Hope. So I think it's like 5 years after Order 66 or something like that. So basically long before A New Hope starts. So you've got this new empire around, and basically no Jedi or Force users anywhere around, really. Like it's not like they were before anyway. So it's interesting to explore that world and see like all these Clone War like relics and things still kicking around. And just because you've never, at least I don't think there's a whole lot of media that show that time frame. So, anywho, Fallen Order, I thought they crushed. But I'm a sucker for RPGs anyway. What were you gonna say, James?
I want to talk about Fallen Order too, because I totally forgot to do that.
So can we circle back to Fallen Order? Because I think that is, for me, that's gonna be like the odd duck outside of the box for me, for EA.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I will not give EA a grade because I can't do that. I'm gonna just more say they are the king of the half-ass.
Okay.
They go halfway in and then they pull out. And I'm gonna start from the bottom and go up.
Okay.
Because I want to save SWTOR for last. So Squadrons is coming. I'm not a flight sim guy, but the game looks fantastic. The detail in the game looks like they got it right. And this is where I am starting to appreciate the delay in EA releasing games, because what they've done for the last 8 years is they've sat down with Lucasfilm and now the mouse, which is Disney, to make sure that they're designing things that they're going to like, because, as James said it, Star Wars is such a big world or galaxy that there's so many details that have to be fleshed out. Like, you can't make Cal in Fallen Order. How long do you think that took to make that character? I'm not saying the actor that played it. I'm just saying that idea of that Padawan, that might have taken a year of storybook. Just the character. You don't know how they flesh that out. And where EA and their license, I'm saying half-ass, other than Fallen Order and the Lego series, they seem to make a product and they go halfway into it and then they just stop. Because they're like, okay, nobody's playing this, but people love it. And I feel like with Battlefront 1, the 2015 version, I feel like it was a trial run. I thought the game was great. It had its flaws, but it was fantastic. The Frostbite engine, I never saw a Star Wars game look like that before in my life. So when that first time you loaded into your team deathmatch assault match and you were at Jabba's sail barge in Tatooine running on the sand, you were blown. I had to stop and I died because I was mesmerized by the amount of detail that went into this game.
Mhm.
And I felt like I was playing Return of the Jedi, right? If stormtroopers were at that point.
Right.
They took what was wrong with Battlefront and mixed it into Battlefront 2. And Battlefront 2 was great. The problem with that was EA on the front end in the beta was greedy with these loot boxes.
Right.
And it was at the time where people were so worried about microtransactions and pay to win that it ruined the game.
Right. And that game ended up becoming like the scapegoat for all of the whole gaming industry's frustration with microtransactions.
Correct. And,
Yeah.
they said, what did they say? It was one of the worst launches of a game ever in history.
Yeah.
Well, it took the narrative. I mean, the whole narrative of that thing was not the game anymore. It wasn't the detail. It wasn't the gameplay. It was this one thing, these loot boxes, these microtransactions, this pay to win, this lottery type of thing. And it was so big. I mean, it garnered like lawsuits and changes in laws. It just completely took the narrative away, and everyone fixated on this one thing. And so then, that's all there is. And it becomes very frustrating. It becomes so frustrating that people don't even pick up the game at that point because they don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, that was me
Right.
and Marcus.
Yes, we didn't play it. We did not play that game. I think we started playing it 8 months ago. I think we downloaded it and played it, but we really started playing it a few months ago.
Yep.
Maybe it was 8 months ago. I don't know. But the game was great. So now I'm going to finish with good old Star Wars The Old Republic.
Mm-hmm.
I think they invested $200 million into this game. The pre-launch stuff, and James, you're going to know all about this because you had the podcast, was huge. I mean, they hired Jedi and Sith actors to take over Times Square in New York City. They were having cantinas all over the world to celebrate this game. They blew this game up like crazy. And when they launched the game, it didn't do as well as they thought it was because there were some problems. And instead of hitting the problems by the forefront, EA just pulled back. And they were like, it's a failure. And they've looked at that since the game has launched because it didn't destroy WoW. That's all it is. And this game has come, there's so much content. Like when you play those first 8 class stories, that is an unbelievable, untold story for Star Wars. Like I've never been able to make, other than Knights of the Old Republic, of course, a choice as a, that was as like a Jedi or as one character. But how about as a bounty hunter making a dark side or light side choice, or a trooper? You know what I mean? Like or being like the Han Solo smuggler type, and you get to decide if you want to shoot a guy or just be snarky to the guy. That doesn't happen. And what's happened since then is they've realized that they have the second largest IP in the world, so they can do half the content of everybody else and people will still play the game. And I know I sound really down on them, but I am, because I feel like this game could have been so big, and it was before it launched. And EA, you can say it was BioWare, but EA as the big corporation, I think, let a big game slip, and we're watching it happen with other games. Look at Battlefront 2. And I know we've already said this, but it has 20 million concurrent players, but EA is allowing DICE to stop making this game. Or why not pass it to one of your sub studios and have them continue the content, because this game is successful now.
Right.
20 million players playing this game. If you put out a $20 update to the game, people will buy it right now. And they're not. They've completely pulled out, and they're like, okay, you can go make your Battlefield game. And Battlefield will not be as big as Battlefront, in my opinion. In 2021 or 2022, whenever the next Battlefield comes out, that game will not be as big as Battlefront is. I truly believe it.
I don't doubt
Versus, especially when the what is it when you have like the competition out there is so high. You have Call of Duty, Apex Legends, and Fortnite, right? Those are the big three, and Battlefield is, in the big four. But yeah, you have your avid Battlefield players, but is the player base bigger in Battlefield or is it bigger in Battlefront? And it goes to my half-ass. And why I think EA needs to keep the license is because they've done all of the work on the front end, working through Lucasfilm and Disney, and they finally have it right with the details. Look at Fallen Order. Fallen Order, I'm not done with it. I just found out about the second sister live on stream. Nick was there. I'm not spoiling anything.
Yeah. Nick
was there. I wish that clip button worked, because my face showed it all. I was blown away by what it was. Yeah. And you guys name some like big twist in a show that blew your mind.
The Usual Suspects, or
okay.
Oh, that's so good. That's such a great example. I'll go with that one too.
Okay.
All right.
Also, that M. Night Shyamalan movie with Bruce Willis. What is
that was the other one I was thinking of, actually. So yeah, I got nothing. You just
Sixth Sense.
Oh, The Sixth Sense. Yep. And for me too, the first one that pops into mind is when you find out in Fight Club that Brad Pitt was always just an illusion.
Oh, wait. I have a video game one. So both, the original BioShock game, there's a twist in that. And also,
oh my God, yes.
And also, would you kindly remember BioShock Infinite's big twist as well?
Yep.
Did you play
BioShock?
KOTOR. What about the original KOTOR?
Oh my God,
like yes.
The same twist.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, like, wow, you've been playing this character and you are the character.
Right.
So that's my point, is Fallen Order, like, the plot twist just gets me.
Yeah.
And now
there's even
more
big reveals than the one you felt, by the way. It gets better.
I'm sure there is. James, how far are you in Fallen Order?
Not far enough that you won't spoil it by talking about that.
Okay, got it. Do you remember what planet you're on or anything?
Yeah, I just left Ilum.
I haven't been there yet.
No, you're further than Marcus then.
Okay.
If you've left Ilum, then you're definitely further than Marcus. Marcus is
I'm not.
Kashyyyk for the second time. Or no, Zepho.
No, Zepho for the second time.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very much in the beginning.
No, I think you're probably like 30 to 40% through.
Okay.
Yeah, because you've been to Kashyyyk once. You went to what's the planet with the Zabraks?
Oh, Dathomir.
Dathomir.
My favorite.
Yeah, you went to Dathomir once already.
Planet. God, that is my favorite planet.
It's something about video game design when they can make you hate a planet but then respect it at the same time.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Which planet is that?
Did that? Oh, Dathomir. I
love it. That's my favorite Star Wars planet.
And I'm like, oh my God, I hate this planet so much, but I like really respect all the artistic choices they made with it. Like, I don't think you're supposed to like Dathomir.
No, it creeps me out. And
oh yeah,
I 100% of that planet so fast just so I could be done with it.
Yeah, like I don't want to spend any time on Dathomir.
Yeah,
and I want to live there.
Oh.
I love it.
You should be a Zabrak character next time you make a tune.
I want to talk about
that's
like one of the things that you were talking about with KOTOR, because not KOTOR, SWOTOR, because you were talking about like how I sort of lived that rise and fall at the very beginning of it. And one of the things that you mentioned was that it didn't beat WoW. And that was a big point of frustration for us podcasters, like launch podcasters, was we had all come from WoW. Everybody came from WoW at that time. And WoW was
right.
somewhere between the 10 and 14 million person range in there. And WoW really blew the market apart when it came out. You know, there were people that really didn't believe an MMO could have a user base any bigger than, I don't know, 350, 400,000 people, you know, from those previous games, EverQuest and whatnot. And WoW came out and it set this genre up where for like a decade after, people were trying to chase that cash. And there was definitely an element where you could see that EA was thinking that this was going to be big, big dollars. Like WoW kind of faltering a little bit. We are going to steal this whole player base and put them into Star Wars. Except what they didn't realize is that WoW, 6 or 7 years into it, had 6 or 7 years of figuring things out, you know, and fixing bugs and making gameplay improvements. And so when SWOTOR came out, people compared it with a very old WoW, which was unfair, because it didn't have that time to sort of mature. And like you said, EA really kind of pulled the plug on it very quickly, which was tragic, because I think that had they had more time to, you know, develop these things, because the complaints were like, well, the Jedi temples feel empty, the cities feel empty. Okay, that's not an unsolvable problem here, right? Like we can put more people in there. But all of a sudden it's like, we are not going to have a 10 million user platform. Let's look at another payment model. And so it was just like sort of crushing to see that happen all at once, because you could almost see it coming a little bit.
Yeah, I played it at launch. I bought the collector's edition to get the Malgus statue. I fell in love. And then that was at the height of Call of Duty's like reign.
Yeah,
and
like Black Ops 2, I think.
Yeah, and I played it for about 2 weeks, and I was just like, I can't play this game. I'm going back to Call of Duty, because that's where all my friends were. And I found the game again years later. But the thing for me with EA and what we're talking about is they've never put their foot back on the gas. And now that Star Wars is the second biggest IP in the world, they still haven't. I mean, they still don't even mention the game. It's like, if we went to the BioWare office, I'm curious if like SWTOR is like the back 3 desks in like a corner, and there's a floor to ceiling wall so nobody can see them, and it says like, and there's like a dunce hat on the wall.
Jesus.
I mean,
but it's how they treat them, right? And James is going to agree, because he watched the rise of this game and the epic fall of this game in a year.
Yeah, it was fast, real fast.
That's right. And instead of, in my opinion now, instead of saying, okay, let's invest some money here and really like try to get some of these players back. And believe it or not, with an MMO, I do like the free to play model. I think it is fantastic. It's either, for me, free to play, or do like Elder Scrolls does, where you just buy the game and you're done. And if you want to sub, you can, but you absolutely don't have to, right, as far as I understand.
That model is surprisingly effective. I think that one of those ones where people are like, we're not real sure if this is going to work. And then Elder Scrolls has really been crushing it.
But when Elder Scrolls launched, it was a fail too.
Absolutely.
Final Fantasy 14, it was a fail. But the difference between EA and Square Enix or Bethesda, they were like, we're not letting this game fail. We're going to double down and we're going to make it right, and we're going to make some money. And that's what they've done, where EA has not. Now, I don't know how much now 8 years later, how much of EA's hands are in the SOTOR jar versus BioWare. I can't answer that. But what I can say is that every other MMO that is out there, even Rift, who even knows what Rift is, comes out with more content than SOTOR. Now, is this a hey, we're gonna create as little content as we can so we can make as much money as we can? Is it that the license costs so much that they can't afford to create a lot of content for the game? Or is it that, you know, EA is restricting them on how much content they can release? And it's making, it's gotten to the point now where, you know, there's been so much silence out there. People are leaving the game left and right. And then you have a game like Fallen Order, where it's unbelievable. Yes, it's a single player story. It's not a live game, but why not invest more into it, especially now?
I don't think they can. I don't. I mean, I'm sorry, Nick. I'm stealing your lines here.
Oh, please, they're royalty free lines. Steal
Uh,
away.
I think that I don't think they can at this point. I think that what happened was after that year when they made that dramatic shift, they really hamstrung the whole operation. They got rid of a lot of people and a lot of the talent left because they saw the writing on the wall. Like the community organizers, guys like David Bass, they moved on very quickly. It sort of all got pared down to like Eric Musco, and they, like you said, put him in the corner and said, okay, we can't shut this down. We just launched it. We're going to change the model. We're going to try to squeeze some dollars out of this to recoup our investment, and we're going to let it continue going. And then, they realize it's like, oh, okay, well, we're making a little bit of money off this thing, so let's do an expansion. Let's keep it going so long as we can make a little bit of money off of it. And the expansions have been good, but now it's too late. Like the game is dated graphically. It's not built to compete with Elder Scrolls Online, which, like we've said, is a gorgeous looking game. SWTOR is just simply not a gorgeous looking game anymore. It was very competitive when it launched, but that was a long time ago. And so I don't think you can turn it around like you could with Battlefront 2. That's an easy game to turn around. They're still very competitive as far as the look goes. Now, I don't think EA does things like turn around. I mean, they're a juggernaut. They're like trying to shift a Star Destroyer into reverse quick. That's not a thing. And so I don't expect that out of any of this. But I think that the whole, like you said, the operation from once they made that change, they're in the back corner, man. That is just something where they're going to continue to let it run so long as it makes a little bit of money. And then when everybody leaves, then they'll say, it had a good run.
But so I want to talk about the graphics of SOTOR. Yes, they are dated, but if you look at all the rest of the MMOs out there, it still looks good. Elder Scrolls is prettier, but it's newer. But Final Fantasy 14, WoW, and what's the other one? Like Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 is beautiful, but like I think SOTOR still looks good for an MMO. I do agree it's none of the games are like Battlefront because you can't have an open world MMO game that looks like that. Even if you look at New World, which is Amazon's MMO that's coming, it's pretty, but it doesn't look like a AAA game of 2020. You know what I mean? It's because there's so much that you need to render and make that it's not possible to make them look like that.
Yeah, the one that really might wreck shop though is the new Lord of the Rings one that comes out, because Lord of the Rings really has a lot invested in ambience. I mean, that's part of the Lord of the Rings story, is these places that everyone knows so well. And so when that comes out, and then Amazon's deal, it's just every year that goes by, it's a little tougher for SWTOR's stylized art to remain competitive. So I don't see them putting more money into that.
I guess so. The way I look at it is, if you run a business and you do a bad job, people will stop paying for that service, right? And I think, I wouldn't think they would want it to end. And I don't know. And at this point, my solution to SOTOR is make it 100% free to play. Open the game up to free. If you want to do flashpoints, if you want to do operations, you want to do PvP, you buy a pass for $5 each for the month or whatever it is, and you just call it a day. Because really, truly, the only reason to subscribe is for operations and PvP, or because you love the game. Really, that's what it comes down to. It's a tax to play those two parts of the game, because everything else is pretty much unlocked. And their model is if you sub for 1 month, you get all of their story content. And a topic that got brought up to me this past week, since we've been having this discussion, is when Ben Irving was the game producer, he created this model of coming out with chapter content every month or so, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a year, every month there was a new piece of story. So it was like an hour of story a month. And there were subscriber rewards and all of these things. And, people can joke about the subscriber rewards that were, cheesy, but there was new content every month. And that made me want to stay subbed. And at this point, people can say, oh, they didn't focus on the right things. Well, maybe they didn't, but in a game where you can't produce a lot of content, releasing something every month or every 2 months is a really good idea.
I totally agree with that. And I think that, speaking poorly about it does a little bit of a disservice to the thing that it does better than any game, which is story.
Right.
I mean, the story, like you said, those 8 character stories, that's unparalleled. That is BioWare at BioWare's best. And it is still amazing. Like, it is worth it for me to go back and say, gosh, I can't remember that sorcerer storyline or that,
and it's so good.
They're all great. All 8 of them are great. And it's worth experiencing. So there is definitely still something there that is as good as it gets. And I just wanted to say that, that's worth paying.
Oh, 100%.
Right, of course.
I think I was just going to make a little comparison. I think the story classes for SOTOR are like Ben and Jerry's ice cream flavors. You really can't go wrong with whichever one you pick. They're all going to be amazing. But they're all different flavors of amazing, At least from what I've played. I enjoyed them a lot. I think I really enjoy that whole like butterfly effect style of storytelling that BioWare does so well. That's one of the reasons why I love the Mass Effect series so much. It makes you feel like your choice. One of my favorite things, and which turns into one of my biggest gripes of a different franchise. One of my favorite things in SOTOR is obviously the choices and how your choices legitimately matter and affect your story and affect your story because it becomes your story. It's not just a story that you're playing through. You can customize it to you, where another prime example of this is Fallout or Fallout New Vegas having that. You can customize your story to you because you can change how you interact with all these different factions. And one of my biggest gripes in turn with Fallout 4 is the removal of that. Essentially, all of the choices that you could make led you to the same decision. And that's totally not the case in SOTOR at all. You can have all these custom endings or custom decision trees and just different paths that you can take through all of these stories, which I think makes it so much more enriched. Just to sort of piggyback on what you were saying.
Right. Nick, what's the first thing you hear of when you hear of Darth Barris?
Like distaste.
What's your? Yeah,
I fucking hate that guy. I want to kill him immediately.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's the magic of the SOTOR story.
Yeah, that just like one name like evoked this like large emotional reaction. If I had a camera on me, you would have seen me like gag a little.
Exactly.
Like, and they're legitimately funny too. right? Like
Yes.
a lot of the interactions with your side characters, I absolutely fell in love with my cohorts on those journeys in multiple different character classes. Like there,
Yeah.
you have a huge emotional attachment to these people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And then you have a game like Fallen Order, who right from the beginning you are sucked in.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it was like the original class stories of SOTOR when you landed on the planet of Coruscant, and or the Inquisitor story, and he's like, "Welcome, slave," and you're like, "Whoa, dude, do you want to get punched in the face right away?" Like, and that's what Fallen Order did to me right in the beginning. And again, and where SOTOR is so good, it's completely addictive. Like once you start playing, you don't want to stop playing that class story. And just like Fallen Order now, you got into it and you're like, whoa, this is untold. And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, one more mission.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, you're like, I'm supposed to get back to my ship and I don't know where I'm going. And all of a sudden you get captured by some bounty hunter. Yeah. So,
And I mean, that
anyway.
really says something too, because all the great games that I can remember had those, emotional attachments to the characters, those stories. Those are the games I remember playing that I thought were great. And SWTOR had that. And yet somehow it's not one of the great games, right? So, like, what happened? And it's all of those other little things. But then the fact that they pulled the plug on it so fast, it just makes it
Right.
frustrating because there are elements of that game that are A plus, and yet somehow it's still, never really got there.
Right.
It's like you gave it a B. Nick gave it a B minus. I didn't grade it, but EA gave it an F just because it didn't shut down World of Warcraft.
Right.
It seems
It's
like
totally unfair.
if SOTOR was like taking a grading exam, right? It got it answered 10 questions and only got 4 right or something, and then EA out of 100 question test, and EA automatically gave it an F after the first 10 questions. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, they just stopped the test.
Right. Yeah, they said
They
nope.
stopped looking
Okay, you're out. Yeah.
I think that, when with Fallen Order, though, like if you were to do this and say, okay, take the last 4 years of EA and now grade them, I think that's a pretty wildly different scenario. Like Fallen Order is a great game, and it gets better as you play it. And I love the fact that it's like a standalone thing. There's nothing else to it. Here's a game. It's great. It's polished. Have fun. And that's what I think they're going to try to do with Squadrons a little bit is like, okay, we worked really hard on this. Here it is. We're not going to give you day one downloadable content. We're not going to give you anything like that. Like you either like it or you don't, but we think you will. And I love the way that they're moving in that direction. So the last 4 years, I'd give EA a B plus out of a lot of this stuff, and maybe even an A minus.
I can't agree more. And
I think that's totally fair to say. Yes.
the Fallen Order game, it reminds me of the old Super Return of the Jedi for the Super Nintendo for me. It was just it was tough. It had its challenge, but it actually felt like you were in the game, like in the movie in that game back then because of all the jumping and like the mechanics of the boss fights and all of those things. And Fallen Order brought me back to those days. Or it is because I'm still playing it.
It's
Man, now I really want to play
right?
this right
Like
now.
all the great games over time have also just kind of felt good. Like going back to Mario, right? The jumping just feels right. Fallen Order nails that. Everything about that, which is hard to do with a lightsaber, just feels right.
I actually agree with that.
Me too. 100%.
The-
I love
the double-bladed lightsaber is hands down the best feeling anything I've ever played in a game.
I actually like the single blade better a lot of times,
That's funny.
personally. But I like the move set a little. I don't know. I guess by play style, it depends.
Sure.
I'd switch back and forth a lot when I was playing.
But think about how hard that must be to have two different people playing that game and both be able to legitimately argue that they like a different lightsaber style better.
Also, how about the fact that we can choose? Like, who would have thought to program that into the game and have two completely different move sets that you can switch back and forth
On
in
the
between and from on the fly? That's an incredible mechanic that I've never acknowledged before. That's that's fantastic. Plus, now you're throwing in force abilities on top of it, on top of all the crazy platforming mechanics that are in that game, on top of all the really really rich story details, on top of the really cool environments. My one gripe of Fallen Order, out of all the positivity, I give it a 99.5 out of 10. Is the sort of animation or drawing or whatever you want to call it, characters for the Wookiees look terrible.
Oh my God! Right? Yeah, they did. They look like they're made out of. They look like they're a rubber dog toy.
God, that must be really hard or something because they're almost impossible to get right. Right?
Yeah. I think it's because I think I've been told that hair is really hard to animate. So I'd imagine something that's all just hair and long fur. It's just bound to look silly.
They did a pretty good job because it was that stylized animation. They could get away with, making them a little blockier. But you're probably right. It's all just animating hair. You get a giant pile of hair, 7-foot pile of hair.
Yeah, they look a little Muppet-y in Fallen Order, but everything else is absolutely beautiful. But when I got to Kashyyyk and I saw Wookiee, I was like, "Ooh, that stands out." But everything else is so perfect that I just laughed at it and kept moving.
So I'm going to ask you guys: do you think EA gets the license renewed?
Okay, I know my answer. James, do you want to go first?
I'll go first. I think the answer is yes, because of what I said earlier, that it's such a behemoth task that there's only a few companies in the world that can do it, and they are one of them. And they finished strong. So the fact that they finished strong means that they have a pretty good argument as to why they should keep it going. So I'll say yes.
So I'll say yes as well for a slightly different reason. To sort of think about that concept you were talking about, how with WoW versus SOTOR when they came out, I think EA has had this behemoth IP for this long, and they've worked out the kinks. And like you're saying, they've finished strong, right? So they sort of know a little bit more how to work with this, really passionate fan base and lore. Now, although they had some hiccups when they first got the license, I think if another development studio were to come in, they'd be starting all over again, and they would be getting compared to EA's last projects versus this new studio's stumbling blocks. Even if it was a giant studio like, I don't know, Activision or name any other giant game studio, I think they would stumble a little bit as well, and it would be an immediate negative reaction and be like, "Oh, give it back to EA." So I think because of that, because EA is improving and they've sort of have had all this time with it, I think they're going to win it again.
Okay, so I do agree with both of you, but there's going to be one stipulation.
Okay.
I think they're going to make it an open forum, almost like the Unreal Engine. They're going to say, EA, you can continue your license to make these games, but we're opening it up to other studios. So Sonny's video game studios or Nick's badass video game studio, it calls up Disney or Lucasfilm and says, "Hey, I want to make a Star Wars game." They say, "Tell us about it," and they pitch it, and they say, "Sure, do it." I think, and that will produce probably some bad Star Wars games, but I think it's going to help the IP long term continue to grow and be able to have quality games that stand out in the future.
I think that makes sense. I think they would probably limit who they're giving game rights to, though. They might give can you imagine a Bethesda Star Wars game or something? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but I think it would have to be a really well developed studio that's got a lot of polished AAA games. I don't think they're giving it to you're ever gonna see like indie Star Wars games. I think the IP.
Why not?
I don't
You
think
don't
they're
think
they're gonna think like that.
you don't think like making a pixel art side-scrolling Star Wars game again can do well?
I think you can, and I think they would be willing to risk like a reputation loss if that ends up being a bad game or something. Only if you're not telling any novel stories in that game. I don't think like for like in Fallen Order, you're telling novel new stories in that game,
You're
and
creating
that's
canon. Yeah.
I think you're not going to risk like telling this really cool story or like on a studio that's not like really really well polished, and it's not like almost a guarantee that it's going to be at least a decent game. Does that make sense?
It sure does.
I would definitely like to see other studios make Star Wars games, though, of course.
Sure. Well, James, tell us where we can find you.
You can find my podcast if it ever comes out with season 3. I'm kidding. We're really close. We, the royal we. It's all just me.
Well, just for the record, the 2-hour season 2, like the entire semester, the cliff note. Well, it's not the cliff notes, but like the
syllabus.
The syllabus. That was awesome because it just kept playing. I actually loved it, and I listened to it again because I listened to each episode, but then I listened to the a syllabus, and it was really satisfying. And for the record, I think Cad Bane is better than Boba Fett. But anyway, tell us where everybody can find you and your
find
podcast.
all my stuff. University of Coruscant. Coruscant for non-Star Wars fans is spelled Coruscant. You can find me at universityofcoruscant.com, or the podcast is on iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify and everything like that. You can also find me on Twitter at UofCoruscant. And yeah, I mean, it's out there, and it's something that I think that everybody will love, even if they're not big Star Wars fans. For some reason, I have a really big following of 10-year-olds, which was somewhat unplanned, but I keep discovering 10-year-olds that love my podcast. And I think that's great, because who at age 10 didn't love Star Wars? So that really makes me feel good about it. It's all the work I've ever done in my life crammed into 15-minute audio episodes. So there's a lot of labor of love in this. I think you guys are going to like it.
Well, thanks again so much for coming on the show, and we'd love to have you again sometime.
Well, I had an absolute blast, and I missed this, early when Sonny's Diner eventually left. SWTOR and started doing other stuff. It was kind of just gaming and interviews and things like that. And so I miss, talking this kind of stuff with people that are really passionate about it. So I had a great time tonight, and thank you very much for inviting me.
And when Squadrons comes out, we'll have to have you and Kogas on to talk about it.
I will have no shortage of opinions on Squadrons. I can tell you that.
What are you guys talking about in here?
Find out next episode of
Working Class Nerds.